The white light around Ione shimmered softly, not eerie at all. It held a faint, holy radiance. It draped her shoulders like a thin veil of water, each luminous thread seeping with a soft, alluring pull. One more glance, and it might just snare your mind and soul. Little brother, the words slipped from her crimson lips, coy, bewitching, gentle, dripping with charm. Every syllable like an invisible tendril worming into the ear, hooking deep into the marrow. Damn it, a shudder shot across Kael's scalp. That voice, that tone, it was absolutely not Ione. Runt, runt. He Zheng's face was deathly pale, his lips trembling, his legs like lead. Brother Gu, hurry, get away. Little fatty. Ione bit her red lip softly, a watery mist clouding her eyes as she fixed He Zheng with a gaze both tender and searing, like clinging silk. Her voice carried 3 parts grievance, 3 parts coquettish anger, 3 parts anxious unease, and one last sliver of bone, devouring allure. Could it be your big sister isn't beautiful after all? A teardrop slipped down, shattering into damp specks on the ground. The moment she called him little fatty, He Zheng's bones turned to jelly. You don't cry. His eyes went muddled with infatuation, pupils losing focus. Beautiful, you're so beautiful. The sound of a palm strike exploded. Kael swung his arm in a full arc and smacked He Zheng across the face. The crisp crack of flesh meeting flesh sent the air rippling. A searing, fiery sting pierced straight through He Zheng's dazed stupor. Beautiful, my ass, Kael roared. Chubby, run the hell away. That slap wrenched He Zheng clean out of the bewitching haze. When he looked again at Ione's devastatingly peerless, enchantment-laced face, it no longer brought any pleasure. Instead, a chill shot from head to toe, cold sweat instantly soaking his back, a demoness. What's wrong? The bewitching voice slithered close again, like a serpent's tongue flicking the air. Is big sister that terrifying? Come here, let me take a good look at you. No, cold sweat beaded on He Zheng's brow. He didn't even dare glance sideways. This blessing pang ye hear cannot bear it. You find someone else, farewell, farewell. A golden light flared on He Zheng again, as he made to bolt. Chubby, Kael raged, are you planning to ditch me here alone again? Cough, coughed, He Zheng's expression froze. Force of habit, don't take it personally. He grabbed Kael's shoulder, poised to drag him along in the escape. You two, behind them, Ione's voice verged on shattering, so light it might break apart. You're really willing to abandon big sister here alone? There are so many demonic beasts around, I'm no match for them. Both Kael and He Zheng cursed inwardly. Wish they'd devour you. A faint sigh. Ione's tone shifted to melancholy, like the cold winds of late autumn. It seems you truly despise your big sister. I'm heartbroken, so heartbroken. Before her words fully faded, a wisp of that hazy white light around her separated, quivering like a living thing. It landed on He Zheng, who had already darted far away. A wretched howl. He Zheng felt an invisible mountain crash down upon him, his body freezing mid-motion, unable to take even half a step further. A thread of gentle breeze wafted past. Ione's figure was already standing before the two. Dear little brothers, you really have no sense of romance. I've been slumbering for so long, barely awakened. All I wanted was a kindred soul to chat with. Yet you, tears fell again, each droplet refracting a strange white glow. Treating me like this, I'm so very sad. The most alluring voice now chilled them to the marrow. Ancestral auntie. He Zheng was on the verge of breakdown. Please, I beg you, find someone else. We have no feud, no enmity, and besides, Pangy here isn't even good. Looking him, he promptly tried to redirect the fire toward Kael, this brother Gu of mine. His foundation is profound, his innate talent exceptional, and his looks don't judge by the current state. He used to be quite handsome. A dragon among men like him is the NLY worthy match for you. Chubby, Kael fumed. I should never have slapped you awake just now. Brother Gu, He Zheng said pitifully, your old acquaintances with Yuel Idle Lig. She surely won't do anything to you. Just endure it, and it'll pass. Endure your grandpa, Kael growled. She is not Ione at all. Kael, the voice came again, but this time it was Ione's original icy clarity. Look at yourself now. She stepped closer, closing in on Kael, her eyes cold as icy spikes. Do you think you still have the right to act proud before me? Now, not only the voice, but the tone, bearing, and gaze were identical to the Ione from before. Drop the act. Kael shook his head. You're not her. How do you know I'm not? Ione's tone carried a hint of mockery. Kael, you know what's the most despicable thing about you? Your arrogance. Look how pitiful you are now. The reason is simple. Kael stared into Ione's eyes. Ione has never stood this close to me. Across from him, Ione froze for a beat. Oh dear. In the next instant, her expression shifted abruptly into vexation as she stamped her foot. I've been seen through. How boring. Couldn't you just play along? How infuriating. Her demeanor shifted from bewitching charm to cold aloofness, then to the coyness of a maiden, each transformation seamlessly natural, without the slightest stiffness. He Zheng inhaled sharply. This woman, every single face, seemed to be her true self. You're too much. Ione was once again on the verge of tears, not a shred of tenderness for others. This, miss, Kael's scalp was tingling. I'm a blunt person, no good with words. I hope you won't take offense. You could go for this fat brother here. Aside from being ugly, speaking harshly, having no sense of loyalty, and being a coward afraid of death, he hardly has any other flaws. More importantly, this fat brother of mine is a true connoisseur of delicate beauty. Son of a turtle, with every word, He Zheng's face darkened further. Is that your way of trashing someone? A connoisseur of delicate beauty. Ione's beautiful eyes rotated, lingering on He Zheng for a moment, only to return to Kael. But I find myself far more interested in you. Miss, had He Zheng been able to move, he would have given a thumbs up. You have excellent taste. No, Kael's scalp went numb again. Moreover, Ione drew close again, lifting her face and sniffing lightly with a face of rapture. The scent on you is surprisingly pleasant too. Her nose nearly grazed Kael's neck, her breath cool, carrying a strange, demonic floral fragrance. Is that so? A faint, dark glint flickered deep within Kael's eyes. Closer, take a proper whiff. Gladly. Ione's smile was sweet and beguiling, and she actually drew nearer, closer still. Closer. Hehe, you're an absolute menace. A rosy flush bloomed across Ione's porcelain features, but this elder sister adores it. She never noticed the anomaly in Kael. She drifted closer still, until their faces were nearly touching. That exquisitely familiar, breathtaking visage loomed inches away. Kael drew a deep breath, forcing down the nameless agitation stirring inside him, and two words slowly unfurled between his lips. Soulbind, the Spirit Enthrallment art, the dark light in his eyes exploded outward. A viscous, sluggish sliver of spiritual sense tore free of his body and shot toward Ione's forehead. In that instant, her expression froze rigid, her eyes scattered, turning blank and hollow as a puppet's. Ha, Kael exhaled with shuddering relief, and instantly retreated to widen the gap. Chubby, now, what the hell are you waiting for? Hit her. He Zheng was drenched in cold sweat, on the verge of tears. I can't move. What? Kael's heart plummeted. That's impossible. The vacant-faced Ione burst out laughing. Her eyes morphed from mindless bewilderment into sly, mocking glee in the span of a heartbeat. Little boy, well, tricked by your elder sister, weren't you? You, Kael's chest tightened. You're unharmed. Hehe, Ione shook with laughter, every lilting pulse of it rippling the white radiance enveloping her. In all these years, you're the very first person to use the Spirit Enthrallment art right in front of me. It seems your spiritual force is dangerously mismatched with your cultivation levels. She licked her lips, eyes shifting with the coy air of a maiden, and once again drew closer to... Oh, Kael, elder sister is finding you more and more fascinating. She swayed slightly, the tip of her nose almost grazing Kael's brow, and a layer of sinister light filmed across her eyes. Let elder sister see just what secrets you're hiding. The words had barely faded when a beam of milky white light shot from her forehead. It was as thin as silk thread, yet cold beyond measure, like 10,000-year marrow ice. Without a sound, it dove into Kael's forehead. Deep inside his sea of consciousness, a slender, hazy silhouette drifted through the void. Little boy, Ione's voice echoed with bone, melting temptation. You absolutely must obey elder sister. Otherwise, elder sister will simply devour you. She giggled, her form shifting like smoke and mist, floating toward the deepest reaches of that inner space. Moments later, a mass of golden light erupted ahead. It was as if the sun itself had plunged into an abyss blindingly bright, violently incinerating vast swaths of the surrounding darkness. Ione's fragmented spirit halted in its tracks. She lifted her gaze. And then, before she could see what lay within that golden light, a sword intent tore skyward. The descent of that intent made the entire sea of consciousness scream. The void ripped apart like shredding cloth, spitting out a piercing wail. The sword light fell. Ione's fragmented spirit shattered, colored glass struck by a brutal hammer. In an instant, it burst into a billion splinters. Every shard of light spun, blazed, and was annihilated midair. A shriek of unadulterated terror tore through the silence. The sound overflowed with disbelieving fear and agony, its echo howling endlessly through the emptiness. Outside. Ione stood there with an air of utter leisure, then PFFT, her mouth flew open, and blood erupted in a violent gush. Crimson mist burst into the air. The sickly, sweet tang of blood filled the surroundings. Her body jolted as though slammed by a titanic hammer, and she flew backward, dozens of Zhang away. Thud! Her body crashed heavily to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. She lay absolutely motionless, still as a corpse. This, He Zheng's eyes bulged. And then the oppressive force that had borne down on him like a mountain weight vanished without a trace. The binding had shattered. Almost at the same instant, Kael's eyes wrenched wide open, his pupils convulsed violently. The clothes on his back were already thoroughly soaked, the ice-cold fabric plastered against his skin. Rivulets of cold sweat slid down his spine, spreading a marrow, chilling cold through his body. Close, far too close. If Ione hadn't been so arrogant as to trespass into his mind, he and He Zheng would have both fallen here today. Brother Gu, He Zheng staggered over, his face a mask of terror. Are you all right? She's... Run, Kael's voice was ragged, scraped raw. She's badly wounded. Before she wakes, move. Wounded, He Zheng blinked. A vicious grin crept across his face. Wait here. Your pang ye will just. Pang, my ass. Kael snatched him by the arm. You wake her up, and neither of us is leaving. Right. He Zheng was drenched in icy sweat, every roll of his fat trembling. He gritted his teeth, squeezed the last dregs of his potential, grabbed Kael, spun around, and bolted. Brittle dead branches snapped and splintered underfoot. The frantic cadence of their footsteps echoed through the deathly, silent woods. Their figures were swallowed up by endless shadows. The trial grounds. Oh, Reddelwug's face was a sheet of iron as he stared at the instructors before him, each one bearing visible wounds. All of them sent out. Yes, Halen cupped his fists with heavy finality, but the casualties are immense. Less than a third remain. Oh, Reddelwug said nothing. The air seemed to solidify into glass. A third. Master Feng smiled bitterly. Then we'll just have to go looking. Searcher, oh, Reddelwug clenched his jaw, a fierce light flashing in his eyes. Even if we have to tear apart every inch of the Wildwood, we're finding those too. I'll go as well. Halen's voice, after a weighty silence, was calm yet resolute. An extra pair of hands, an extra shred of hope. Male stepped forward in a rush, face pale yet stubborn. I'm staying too. Halen shot him a sideways glance, started to speak, then eventually just sighed. So be it. Master Feng made a weary, dismissive gesture. Staying is fine. One more person, after all, is one more shred of hope. The remaining instructors held their tongues. Their gazes shifted away evasively. Oh, Reddelwug looked no more at them. He stared into the depths of the Wildwood, his bloodshot eyes holding only a single thought. Find them. Ancient towering trees twisted their roots like demonic claws, slicing the daylight into fractured, scattered shards. In the forest depths, where years of rotted leaf litter had piled high, the very air felt heavy, saturated with the damp stench of decades, long decay. Two silhouettes stumbled through the woods. Hurry up. Kael turned his head, glaring at the listless He Zheng, voice hoarse. At your pace, we won't get out even by next year. Can't go faster. He Zheng gasped, hands braced against his knees, his breathing like a punctured bellows. This time Pang Yi really is spent. The words barely left his mouth. Ione. What? Every roll of He Zheng's fat jolted. A golden aura flared around him, and he shot forward several zhang in an instant. He was already a fair distance away when it sank in. You bastard. You tricked Pang Yi again. Unlocked your potential. You're welcome. Bullshit. Their bickering caromed back and forth through the forest for only a few more rounds before dying completely. Leaning against the thick, gnarled roots of an ancient tree, the two collapsed into a sprawl. Why aren't we there yet? He Zheng rolled his eyes. Pang Yi was clearly heading north. North? Kael's face stiffened. Wasn't it west? Their eyes met, both caught the guilt flickering in the other's gaze. They had fled for half a day, yet couldn't even grasp the direction. I'm not running anymore. He Zheng collapsed onto the ground in despair. Until I can tell north from south, kill me, I'm not moving. Kael said nothing. He was at his limit too. The backlash of the blood spirit art had long faded, but the wreckage in his body was only now showing its true face. His meridians were parched and brittle, like iron pipes rusted shut for a century. His dantian was a hollow cavity leaking wind. Every thread of restorative force he summoned ripped through him from the inside, recovery, so slow it strangled the breath. Tusk. He Zheng eyed him, a schadenfreude smirk tugging at his mouth, the taste of being crippled. Not easy to swallow, is it? Chubby! Kael didn't even have the strength to hit him. You happy that I'm a wreck? Slip of the tongue, He Zheng chuckled awkwardly. Actually, your condition isn't without a cure. Kael's eyes lit up. Tell me. That blood spirit art burned your blood essence and latent potential. Just find a rare spirit herb to replenish them.
How much?
Not much. He Zheng said it offhandedly. A few 100 million to a few billion origin crystal. Silence fell within the woods. Poverty, like a basin of ice water, drenched Kael to the marrow. He Zheng opened his mouth, about to boast something like Peng Yi looks down on vulgar origin crystal, but the words turned into a sigh on his lips.
Yeah.
The prerequisite is that Peng Yi has to be alive. He Zheng, Kael caught the meaning beneath his tone. What are you hiding from me? Can't say. He Zheng grew uncharacteristically solemn. Same as the method you used to wound that demoness. Some things. The fewer who know, the safer. Heh, Kael raised an eyebrow. When you're serious, you almost seem like a proper human.
SCR.
A deep, guttural bellow exploded from the far distance. Roar. No ordinary beast's cry. As the sound wave crashed through the wildwood, the rotting leaves underfoot trembled. Tiny pebbles skittered across the ground. In the depths of the ancient trunks, something seemed to stir awake, humming in faint resonance. Both of them froze. You hear that? Kael's voice was taut. I hear it. He Zheng sprang up, ecstasy blazing in his eyes. A Yao beast. It's a Yao beast. Ha, we can get out. A roar that should have chilled the blood now sounded like heaven's own melody. Where there was a Yao beast, there was a path. Go. Golden light erupted around He Zheng. He scooped up Kael like a chick and shot toward the source of the roar. The golden radiance tore through the gloom. They sped away. Some time later. When they finally crept near the source, He Zheng's face fell. Within the dense forest ahead, several massive shades prowled slowly. With every ponderous step, the very earth shuddered. Fifth Thrank, at least fifth Thrank. He Zheng hid behind a bush, his face twitching. In our state, going out there is just offering ourselves as appetizers. Wait, Kael remained calm. Heal your wounds. We'll move after the upheaval passes and the Yao beasts scatter. He Zheng was about to nod. His body abruptly stiffened. Crack, crack, the sound of snapping dead branches, behind them, terrifyingly close. A person. Their eyes met, pupils constricting to pinpricks. Without looking back, He Zheng grabbed Kael, the golden light just beginning to ignite. HMPH. A cold snort stabbed into their eardrums from behind. Then came the astral palm wind. The howling strike tore through the air, bearing down with suffocating pressure. Bang! Kael felt as if a sledgehammer had slammed into his chest, sending his body hurtling backward. His back snapped through countless dead branches before he tumbled across the ground for several zhang and skidded to a halt. He pushed himself up onto his elbows. As sweetness rose in his throat, hot blood splattered onto the rotting leaves. Beside him, He Zheng lay sprawled, his chubby frame crushing an entire patch of undergrowth. A figure stepped slowly out from the shadows of the forest. Torin! In his eyes, killing intent had condensed almost into a physical substance. You too, he bit off each word, made me wait a good long while. He raised his right hand. On his fingertip, a grain-sized golden worm writhed slowly. Its body gleamed with a sinister metallic luster, each undulation like molten gold flowing. Blood gold worm. You have some knowledge. Torin's mouth stretched into a vicious grin. In that case, you should understand. His gaze swiveled and locked onto Kael. Hand over the dusk-fallen spirit. Fruit. He Zheng shot him a cautious glance. If we tell you, can we trade that for our lives? Torin's expression didn't shift. Tell me, and I'll make it quick. He Zheng spat. You wanna know? Fine. Drop to your knees and call me Grandpa 3 times. A flat crack of displaced air cut him short. Torin's palm lashed forward. The space in front of him collapsed, Kai bursting outward in a rippling shockwave. He Zheng's body snapped backward like a broken toy, splintering a branch as thick as a barrel. Sawdust and bark showered down. He hit the dirt with a wet, heavy thud and didn't twitch. Chubby, Kael's jaw locked. Stop playing dead. He's not buying it. Cough, cough. He Zheng clawed himself onto an elbow, face streaked with blood and dirt. Then what? Maybe just give him back the dusk-fallen spirit, fruit. Kael didn't waste breath on an answer. He forced his legs under him, quaking uncontrollably. Inside his wrecked meridians, the last dregs of true Kai scattered like minnows through torn netting. Their one instant, gone the next. Torin studied him the way a man studies roadkill. One last time, the blood, gold worm on his fingertip writhed faster, its gold sheen slicing through the forest gloom. The dusk-fallen spirit. Fruit, where is it? The words landed like a hammer blow, no more pretense. He Zheng sagged in the rubble, a finger too heavy to lift. Kael stayed upright, but even the strength to make a fist was draining out of him. Wind moaned through the gaps in the ancient trees, the voice of restless dead. The air hung thick with the reek of rotting leaves and the cold mineral stink of deep earth. Kael raised his longsword. The blade quaked so hard it sang. One wisp of killing intent agony, pure and needle, fine bled from the tip and fixed itself dead, center on Torin's brow. Sinew and bone creaked across Kael's body. A low grinding lament pushed past all sane limits. Torin's killing stare froze. That intent made the hair on his neck stand up. Those Nero ya trash, so they really did die by your hand. His voice iced over. That's one more reason to put you down. You want to know? Kael forced the words out. Blood seeped between his teeth. Where the blood spirit art came from, a heaven-tier cultivation art. I've got plenty. Torin's stride hitched. Just an instant. Then he kept coming, murder radiating off him in thicker waves. Cultivation arts are a fine prize. He fixed his eyes on Kael, biting off each syllable. But you need to die. The more I see of you, the more a chill prickles across the back of my neck. You walk away from this, the catastrophes won't end. A thunderclap of aura erupted outward. Solidified force snatched Kael and He Zheng off their feet and flung them like refuse. Stone shrapnel sprayed. 2 bodies cratered into the ground. Kael couldn't even cough up blood anymore. He braced himself on his longsword, knuckles blanched bone, white, and dragged his body upright inch by grinding inch. A brittle crackle whined from his knees with every shift of weight. One wrong move and they'd shatter. Quit the death struggle. He Zheng lay sprawled across the broken rock, eyes glassy. The 2 of us, this is it. Even if we're done. Shaking, Kael took 1 step toward Torin. The sword tip found the hollow of the man's throat again. I'm leaving him a souvenir. The Wildwood fell silent. The air pressed in like lead. A jagged howl ripped through the distance. Not a war cry, a raw, strangulated snarl torn from a caged beast with an iron collar around its throat. Every frequency dripped violence. Torin's pupils shrank. He knew that voice, the thing the beast horde and 3-0 Rettle Wug together couldn't contain, the one force he absolutely could not cross right now. No time left for thought. He poured every scrap of cultivation into his palm and blurred toward Kael and He Zheng. Too slow. A figure shredded the dark and slammed into the clearing. Demonic flames shot skyward. Black fire tongues licked the air, temperature plunged, then seared. The ground buckled under that corrosive power, rock chips snapping and spitting skyward. Tyrannous malice scoured outward in every direction, pressing down on every chest. Demonic Kai churned around the figure, demonic flames coiled like living sinew, swallowing his features whole. Cold sweat sheeted down Torin's back.
Sir.
The man didn't register words. His mind was cooked, only instinct remained. Among everyone present, Torin's cultivation burned brightest. He became the first target. The demonic shadow detonated forward, a palm strike screaming down. Gale winds wrapped in demonic fire. The air compressed into invisible rings that burst outward layer after layer. Torin clenched his teeth and met the blow. The collision threw Kael and He Zheng dozens of feet. Shrapnel force scythed in all directions. Then the second thunderous impact. Before that man, Torin was wet paper. His body rocketed backward, chewing a trench through the wilderness. The ground shuddered, debris geysered up in a choking cloud. The man howled, a mindless roar, and swept up a scablotting tide of demonic Kai to chase. The earth split, a crater several zhangs deep yawned open. As the dust thinned, Torin sprawled at the bottom, drenched in blood, chest caved inward, pink froth bubbling at his lips. He couldn't move.
Strong?
Too strong. Torin's eyes swam with horror. Even Murong River couldn't take a single hit from this thing. The demonic shadow ignored the crippled form in the pit. It turned. Churning demonic Kai pulled back just enough to show graying hair, a stubble, rough jaw, a face carved deep with years. The eyes had almost entirely flooded to pure black. Wrong, terrifying. That gaze fell on Kael and He Zheng. One step, another. Demonic Kai ate into the soil, leaving charred black footprints smoking in its wake. He Zheng's throat clamped shut. We're done. Kael didn't move. He saw that face, the features registered, and Kael locked rigid, as if lightning had spiked through his skull. A violent shudder racked his body, blood reversing through his veins. Brother Kael wears that backbone. Even near death, He Zheng couldn't help himself. Why so scared? Kael's knees hit the gravel. The dull pain of stone drilling into marrow, he didn't feel it. Tears tore out of him, mixing with the crusted blood and grit on his face, dripping from his chin.
Foster, father.
2 words wrecked with sobs. Across from him, the man jolted to a dead stop, trembling. Inside those pure, black eyes, savagery and clarity went to war, black tide retreating an inch, surging back 3, retreating again. Two wills inside his sockets clawed for control of the lock. Demonic Kai bled away, peeling back to reveal a face weathered raw by wind and frost. You are, the voice scraped out, horse past bearing hen, Foster father, Kael's sob ripped into a roar. It's me, you're not dead. The man before him, Thuron. The one everyone had long ago written off as dead. Gu family's treachery, the world's scorn, Bran's petty torments, Durin's murder. Plots through all of it, Kael had never spilled a tear. But looking at Thuron, once so towering and now unmade into a demon, the tears wouldn't stop. He Zheng's mouth fell open. Hell, it really is his father. A spark of hope caught in his chest, then today. He scrambled upright, face snapping solemn. Uncle Thuron, I am. The demonic Kai inside Thuron detonated. A blast of black radiance hurled He Zheng several Zhengs into a pile of rubble. Gu family, Eldrick. Thuron's howl twisted past all recognition. Kill, you. His memory was still pinned to the moment Eldrick's ambush landed. Kael's current wrecked state, he could only imagine those people were responsible.
Foster father, Kael's heart seized.
Demonic Kai gnawed at his arm, charring wisps of smoke from his skin. He reached through the searing pain and grabbed Thuron tight. Eldrick is dead, Gu family is finished. He shouted it again and again. Foster father, I took our vengeance, all of it.
Dead, dead.
Under the repeated cries, the black tide in Thuron's eyes pulled further back. He looked down at Kael's torn body, and a knife, flash of anguish, almost splintered his returning sanity. Who, his teeth ground with a screech, hurt you? I will kill him. Uncle Thuron, from the distance, He Zheng clawed his way upright and stabbed a desperate finger toward the deep pit. It was that bastard who tried to kill brother Kael and me. You absolutely cannot let. The words weren't needed. Thuron's figure shot into the sky. Demonic flames carved a rent through the dark. He landed at the lip of the deep pit, staring down at Torin. Torin was still swimming in disbelief. Not only had a demon lord of that magnitude crushed him for no clear reason, but the man was Kael's foster father. He forced himself upright, face arranged into earnest sincerity, and cupped his fists. Sir Torin's smile looked more painful than a death rattle. I believe there has been some. A large hand wrapped in demonic Kai answered him. 5 fingers locked around his throat, joints sinking into flesh. Torin's larynx creaked. Demonic Kai bit into the wound with a wet sizzle. Hurt, my son. Thuron's eyes had drowned completely in black. Not a splinter of clarity remained.
Die.
Sir Torin's soul practically fled his body. Let's talk.
Crunch.
A muffled, clean, very short snap. The sound of a throat bone giving way. Torin's final scream died right there, strangled silent. The demonic Kai faded. The wilderness sank into dead silence. The fire inside Thuron still raged. His demonic Kai blasted out burning oil on open flame, and he slammed both fists into the earth. The ground heaved. A low rumble rolled through the dirt, sent distant stones jumping. The crater ripped wider with each blow, its mouth tearing from 10 yards to 100. Dark, searing veins crawled along the broken edges, hissing like ink-soaked soil. Where the demonic Kai bit, the dirt crumbled to powder. He Zheng had already slipped away in the chaos. His throat clamped up. He forced a swallow. Your foster father. Kael didn't look at him. That's right. He Zheng's voice sharpened. That voice during the last beast riot. That was him too. Kael nodded. He understood now. Thuron had been hiding in the Wildwood, face and voice twisted beyond knowing. Without seeing it himself, he'd never have believed it. A grin split He Zheng's face. Good, with our foster father around, who's left to fear. Kael didn't bother to answer. His heart weighed like a stone. A month ago, Thuron had only been at the 9th tier of Meridian opening. Now a single punch had obliterated Torin. A sky-reaching realm cultivator. That speed was anything but normal. The golden sigil, the great freedom demon sutra. Once this was over, he'd demand answers from Shade. Another fist, boom, the earth buckled, cracks spiderwebbed, the ground within 1,000 feet, a twisted ruin. A rusty, cloying sweetness hung in the air, the aftertaste of soil, scorched by demonic Kai. At last, Thuron stopped. Nothing remained in the pit. Torin was gone, more thoroughly than ash. Thuron flickered back beside Kael. His gaze landed on He Zheng, raw brutality and killing intent roiling like caged beasts in his eyes. He Zheng's legs wobbled. He forced a smile, holding up a stiff hand with 5 fingers splayed. Uncle Thuron, my name is He Zheng. Kael and I are sworn brothers, bound through life and death. Before you arrived, I saved brother Kael a full 5 times. 5 times, the savagery in Thuron's eyes dimmed. Bro. He Zheng exhaled as if pardoned from execution, his back already soaked through with cold sweat. Thuron seized Kael, his tone ice but urgent. Go. Heal your wounds. They shot into the air. He Zheng hopped in panic. Uncle Thuron, what about me? Kael sighed. Bring him. He is something of a friend, Thuron grunted. A tendril of demonic Kai lanced down, whipped around He Zheng's waist and legs, and wrenched tight. The three tore through the sky. Wind shrieked, He Zheng dragged below. His spine hit an ancient pine. Crack. The trunk snapped, splinters spraying. Before he could yell, his shoulder scraped a boulder, stone crumbling, sharp edges slicing his robes. His flesh burned with agony, howls threaded through the forest. Ayo. Uncle Thuron, slow down. I'm injured. Kael ignored it. Wind howled in his ears, robes snapping violently. Gradually, the landscape below changed. Bizarre rocks jutted like monstrous fangs, and ancient trees blotted out the sky, staining even the light a grim hue. Kael spoke. Foster father, you've been staying here all this time. After a long silence came a single word. Yes, foster father, come back with me to the imperial capital later. Folly is there, too. At the name, a brief flash lit Thuron's eyes, then darkened just as fast. No answer. We're here. Thuron plunged down, retracting his demonic Kai as he brought them to a landing before a vast marsh. A blast of putrid rot hit them. A shroud of deathly green poison mist hung over the swamp, thick as molten glass, churning slow. Kael inhaled a single wisp, and his throat felt scorched raw, a searing pain shooting up into his skull. Below, viscous mud bubbled and boiled, sized blisters swelling and bursting pop, flinging up flecks of green liquid. Thuron set them both down. Wait, he shot up and plunged straight into the wall of mist. The thick fog roiled. A ferocious, maddened roar exploded from deep within the marsh. Monstrous demonic aura erupted skyward, rank wind howling, and Thuron's demonic Kai flared in answer. The two forces clashed, ripples shuddering visibly through the air. The sickly green mist ripped violently open. A gleam of gold stabbed into their eyes. It was a creature shaped like a colossal crocodile, yet less than 3 feet from snout to tail. Its entire body was plated with golden scales that flowed with cold luster, as if clad in black, gold armor. Its vertical pupils contracted in the murk, and beyond icy, savage fury, there glinted a trace of disturbingly human mockery. He Zheng sucked in a sharp breath. A golden scaled croc. Look at it, nearly ready to assume human form. It could reach the 7th tier. Kael's eyes sharpened. A creature this close to transformation shouldn't be hiding here. Unless, He Zheng finished, there's a heavenly treasure it would rather die than abandon. Before the words had faded, a world-shaking detonation roared from the marsh's depths. Boomed the golden, scaled croc's howl tore through the mist. Surging demonic aura blasted heavenward, churning the whole swamp into a boiling cauldron. Black miasma ripped apart. Shockwaves rolled across the ground. Kael's feet lost all footing, and his body was hurled sideways through the air. Brother Kael, He Zheng dove before him, shielding him as their Kai clashed and flared. With me, Pang Yi here. Kael shoved him aside, staring fixedly at the convulsing marsh ahead. There, demonic Kai and beast aura crashed against each other in mad fury. Thuron's form flickered in and out of the haze, black flames coiling around him. Every punch blasted visible shockwaves through the air. The golden scaled croc whipped its tail, scales grinding against demonic aegis with a piercing screech. Great swaths of mud flash evaporated. Billowing into white steam, through that mist, beneath the shadow's berserk violence, lurked a thread of sheer desperation. He was fighting with his life. After what felt like an eternity, a shriek of utter agony split the heavens' roar. Then, tearing past all reason, Thuron's roar erupted. Kill, a devastating shockwave swept outward. Kael and He Zheng were hurled back once more, their backs crashing hard against tree trunks. Kael ignored the pain, scrambling up to charge forward. Foster father, at that instant, a blood-drenched figure plummeted from the sky. Thuron had returned. A fist-sized hole gaped through his chest, horrifying to behold, blood gushing out with every motion and staining the earth a dark crimson. The demonic flames around him had not fully subsided. Residual black tongues of fire licked at the wound's edges, sizzling audibly. But his eyes blazed with startling brightness. Hannah, Thuron slowly opened his right hand, a rare trace of joy breaking through his voice. Come, eat it. Resting in his palm was a green fruit. It resembled a 9-holed lotus pod, a faint glow wavering within each hollow. An extraordinary fragrance unfurled, an aroma that seemed to whisper with life itself. Just a few breaths inhaled, and Kael felt something deep within his shattered body stir, the faintest thread of vitality, like a withered tree meeting spring, putting forth a single speck of new green. My heavens! He Zheng's eyes flared wide. An azure lotus fruit. No wonder that beast fought to the death. This thing is a heaven, sent boon for any demonic beast nearing transformation. Kael turned, his voice taut. What does it do? Your physical body? He Zheng stared at him like he was an idiot. Your mortal form is ruined. This will rebuild your foundation perfectly, restoring all the potential you've lost. Here, Thuron urged, pressing the azure lotus fruit into his hand. Quick. Eat it. Kael's nose stung, a sudden ache blooming in his chest. A vision flickered before his eyes, the same look, the same tone, from years ago when his foster father had brought him the umbral ginseng. To the world, he was a bloodthirsty demon. To Kael, he would always be the foster father who raised him with boundless, meticulous care. Uncle Thuron, He Zheng shuffled closer. Eyes glistening with hope. My injuries aren't exactly light either. Thuron's gaze shifted sideways, his killing intent cold as frost. I was joking. Cold sweat drenched He Zheng. I'm Thix, skinned and tough. A few days' rest will fix me up. Brother Kael needs it far more than I do. Kael shook his head resolutely. I won't eat it. Thuron said nothing. He seized Kael's hand, forced the fruit into his palm, and then his form blurred, vanishing back into the mist. Moments later, he returned, dragging the corpse of the golden, scaled crocodile. You, eat it now, with that. He sat cross-legged on the ground. Wisps of demonic Kai drifted from his body and seeped into the crocodile's remains. The massive carcass withered at a visible pace, while the bloody hole in Thuron's chest slowly began to close and shrink. He Zheng sucked in a breath of frigid air, swallowing the word, savagery, back down. Kael exhaled in relief and examined the fruit in his hand once more. He Zheng, does this fruit really have such great power? Great. He Zheng's voice turned sour, and he shot a glance at Thuron before clipping his words short. Healing your injury is just a side effect. Its true great use lies in the heavenly tribulation. Heavenly tribulation. The old man's tone sharpened to a blade's edge. The cultivation path, Kai condensation, meridian opening, orifice unblocking, core formation, profound spirit, divine projection, sky voyage. And beyond sky voyage, when you dare to step further, the heavenly tribulation waits. A ranks, even beast transforms through the thunder tribulation. A human cultivator at sky voyage's peak, same, you cross it or you die, that's the heavenly tribulation realm. His voice dropped, rougher now, almost a grumble. Divine thunder hammers down, a single touch turns flesh to ash. To survive, you forge a body that can take the hit. The azure lotus fruit, it's a supreme treasure for tempering the flesh, nourishing the body to withstand that strike. A sour twist crept into his words, barely audible. Using it just to patch up wounds, what a colossal waste. Kael didn't blink. What comes after the heavenly tribulation? The earthly tribulation, 2 trials, heaven and earth. Heaven forges your body, earth refines your soul. Find a place thick with baleful Kai, thick enough to choke on and temper your spirit there. Pass both, and the body holds no flaw, the soul no stain. The mortal husk falls away. You step into transcendence. He Zheng's gaze shifted to Thuron, something clicking behind his eyes. Kael's fingers tightened around the fruit. He didn't move. Brother Kael, the old man sighed, and for half a breath, the cynicism bled out. Pluck this fruit without a spirit box, its power fades in days. A treasure that turns fathers against sons, brothers against brothers, and here you two are, shoving it back and forth like a hot coal. His nature reasserted itself before the sentence finished. If neither of you wants the damn thing, just hand it to me. Pang Yi here isn't proud. Don't even think it. Kael's hesitation cracked. He bit down. A third of the fruit's flesh tore away and vanished. The pulp dissolved on contact, a clear, sweet spring rushing down his throat, flooding through limbs and meridians in a single breath. The strange fragrance in the air redoubled, thick enough to taste. He Zheng swallowed hard, eyes locked on Kael's mouth. What's it taste like? I had one before. Can't remember. Nothing. Kael smacked his lips. Let me check again. Crunch, another third gone. Well? Kael's mouth twitched, sort of sweet. The words barely left his lips before his face seized. He dropped to the ground, legs folding into a cross-legged seat. Inside him, spiritual energy condensed with brutal force, his meridians clamping down, squeezing that rich flow into a liquid torrent. It surged. It roared. It slammed against the barriers of every remaining acupoint, like a battering ram. A muffled boom rang out from deep within his body, the sound of a bronze temple bell struck with a warhammer. In the space of a heartbeat, over 10 acupoint barriers shattered. The fruit's medicinal power swept through withered limbs and bone like a tidal surge over a century-dry riverbed. Kael's body drank. Beneath desiccated skin, a low, greedy crackle rose. His graying hair turned at the roots black, spreading like spilled ink, strand by strand, glossy and alive, lifting in the cold wind. Loose skin pulled taut, wrinkles smoothed. Flesh quivered, taking on a luster like polished jade. He Zheng's throat bobbed. He looked at Kael, then at Thuron. Envy twisted his features, but he kept his mouth shut. Then his brows pinched, a smirk curled his lips, dripping schadenfreude. Well, well, that's what you get. Ate too much, didn't you? Ha! Kael's face ran with sweat. Waves of pain chased each other across his expression. He'd miscalculated. The Aziver. Every single one of his 360 acupoints now stood blown wide open, and the torrent inside his meridians showed no sign of easing. It drove his cultivation base upward with reckless momentum, barreling straight for the threshold of core formation realm. No, he could not break through. Not here. Not now. With an explosive shout, Kael shot to his feet, his palm thrust outward. The rampant spiritual power poured out, wrapped in tearing winds, and screamed toward the distant marsh. Mud and water erupted. A vast bank of mist tore apart, the crash thundering across the wilderness. Blood sprayed from Kael's lips, vivid scarlet splattering the dead grass at his feet. Forcing the spiritual flow into reverse, had ripped through him like a jagged blade. The taste of iron flooded his mouth, yet the corner of his lips curled upward. Good he hadn't crossed the line. Demonic flames roared skyward, an oppressive bone, deep cold slammed in from every direction. Theron stood before Kael in the space of a thought, his gaze a whetted edge. Who harmed you? His head turned slow and deliberate, and his stare pinned He Zheng like a moth to a board. Was it you? He Zheng stumbled backward, terror ripping a gasp from his throat. Uncle, he did it to himself. How can you pin this on me? I'm innocent, wronged, I tell you.
Foster father.
Kael's eyelid twitched hard as he rushed forward. He could already see Theron's palm flattening He Zheng into paste. Theron's gaze swept over He Zheng one more time. That look could freeze a man's soul solid and crack it down the middle. Then, slowly, the demonic flames receded. He Zheng wanted to weep. One wrong word, and this Uncle Theron would kill without a flicker of hesitation. Even allies weren't safe. Kael looked down at the remaining chunk of azure lotus fruit. His stomach knotted. He couldn't eat more. Give it to foster father. The shame of that was unbearable. His eyes wandered to He Zheng. Cough, brother He Zheng, how are your wounds? Any improvement? A bark of bitter laughter. He Zheng jabbed a finger at his own bruised cheek, righteous fury blazing across his face. Now you ask, look at this, how the hell would that be any better? Perhaps. Kael extended the last small piece of fruit. The neat row of tooth marks stood out with indecent clarity. He Zheng's face flooded crimson, as if he'd been mortally insulted. His eyes locked onto those bite marks. Eating it would heal every wound he had, but the act itself. His stomach turned just looking. They stared at each other. The standoff stretched for half an incense stick. Forget it. Kael shook his head. I won't force you. Wait. He Zheng's teeth ground together. His hand shot out and snatched the fruit. I'll eat it. Eyes screwed shut, jaw set, he crammed the fruit into his mouth. His Adam's apple lurched, his whole face twisted into a knot of misery, so wretched it hurt to watch. He Zheng, Kael leaned closer. How does it taste? The old man's face drained white, a little nauseating. Kael's expression darkened, fists itching to pound him again. Damn it, He Zheng, you know exactly how precious that fruit is. You think you get to eat it for nothing. There's a price. He Zheng's eyes bulged. You've got the gall to demand payment for your chewed-up scraps. Nearby, Theron's brow furrowed, his eyes cracking open the narrowest slit. No need for formalities. He Zheng's entire demeanor performed an about-face, snapping to earnest solemnity. Brother Gu, you and I have walked through fire together, as close as blood brothers. Talk of price, only wounds that bond. Speak plainly, whatever you want, I, He Zheng, will hand it over without hesitation. The extreme realm. Kael didn't waste a breath. The extreme realm of the orifice opening stage, those 5 hidden acupoints, how do you locate them? He couldn't afford to stall. Spiritual energy swelled inside his meridians, brimming to the point of rupture, ready to break through at any second. He had no faith he could suppress it again the way he had before. That, He Zheng exhaled, relief washing through his frame. Simple. It's just a technique for wielding soul power. This time, he surrendered the information with staggering speed, offering not a whisper of reluctance. Kael's eyes narrowed. Is that so? Sounds awfully simple. Feels like I'm getting cheated here. He gave He Zheng no further attention. Eyes shut, legs crossed, he swept every stray thought from his mind. Heart stilled, spirit focused, self and world dissolved to nothing. His spiritual sense extruded like an invisible filament, reaching slowly toward his 4 limbs. The first target, his left hand. Spiritual sense seeped into flesh and blood, a viscous warmth, the thunder or of surging blood. Threaded through the meridians, the humming vibration of spiritual energy in motion, the drumbeat rhythm of life. Bypass the bone, layer upon layer of obstruction, denser and heavier with every increment of depth. His spiritual sense dulled, sluggish, like a traveler sinking into a bog, each step an agony. Time dissolved. At the precipice where his spiritual sense nearly frayed apart, it punched through the final strata and arrived at a place without name, neither real nor absent. A space suspended between dream and waking. The first hidden acupoint. Vast, that was Kael's first impression. This single acupoint held the volume of dozens of ordinary ones. And the barrier sealing it, impossibly thick, a monster beyond any comparison. It came. Kael's intent sharpened to a point and struck. The violent spiritual energy raging in his meridians turned to savage beasts under martial decree, converging into a single torrent that slammed ferociously into the barrier. Boom! No true sound existed within his body, but Kael felt it, a detonation that seemed to shatter the sky. The quake lanced through flesh, through bone, dazing even his soul. Under the spiritual energy's impact, the barrier wobbled twice. Not a hair out of place. Kael didn't lose heart. If this barrier were so easily breached, those who achieved the extreme realm wouldn't be so painfully few. Boom! The energy converged again, the impact struck again. Boom, boom, boom. A chain of detonations exploded within him in a continuous roar. Again and again and again, until the barrier finally started to loosen, emitting a strained, unwilling cracking sound under the relentless pressure. Boom! The final impact. Crack. The barrier shattered, the last, ditch obstruction, spent and faltering, collapsed utterly at last. The wild spiritual energy found its rightful home, surging in reverse like a tidal flood, pouring into that hidden acupoint. Outside, He Zheng watched the sweat, soaked Kael, his face a mask of concern. Inside, cold laughter never once stopped. Naive, so what if the method's been given to you, can you even? The smile on his face froze solid. Beside him, the aura around Kael churned without cease. That was the undisguised sign of breakthrough, irrefutable proof. The first hidden acupoint had been found and blasted open. Don't panic, it's just one. So at best, compared to my own achievements back in the day, the gap is still sizable. He Zheng's eyes bulged wide as saucers, the eyeballs nearly leaping from their sockets. The second one too. How could it possibly be this fast? Within Kael's meridians, a wisp of sword intent spread fine as gossamer. Sharpness emerged unbidden. The barrier of the second hidden acupoint, the instant his spiritual energy touched it, SHHK, like silk rending, like bamboo splitting. Boom! The Kai churned, and the second acupoint was pierced wide open in a thunderous surge. He Zheng's eyelid twitched. Before he could even open his mouth, the spiritual energy around Kael swelled abruptly once more, rushing toward the third, as if no pause had ever existed. Where sword intent pointed, that barrier which trapped countless souls in day-long stagnation quivered lightly. A thin crack split open. Crack. A crisp, clean snap. The third acupoint yawned wide. Spiritual energy flooded in like oceanic tides, and Kael's robes billowed without a breath of wind. He Zheng's Adam's apple rolled with painful difficulty, every self-soothing word jammed in his throat. His face purpled from the strain. He locked his death stare on Kael. He can't find the fourth. He cut himself short. Kael's brows had wrenched tight in an instant. Consciousness sank into indistinct chaos. The fourth hidden acupoint was plainly there, yet when his perception probed outward, it touched only an invisible wall. Smooth, ice, cold. No purchase to be found. His spirit was already drawn to its absolute limit. Each sweep of perception felt like a dull blade scraping back and forth inside his skull. His teeth clenched, blue veins faintly throbbing between his brows. Just let it go, then abandon it. Boom! The dormant spiritual energy in his dantian detonated. Not a trickling stream, but a howling deluge. He refused to yield. With nothing but this mortal shell, what could he possibly use to clash against those heaven-blessed prodigies? Guys? The amassed spiritual energy shuddered in the void, snapping instantly into the form of a sword. The blade was thin and narrow, its cold edge flickering, sword intent churning the surrounding zhang of consciousness space into a seething drone. Transparent ripples spread in ring after ring through the air, like water's surface hammered into chaotic patterns by rain. A sharp glint flashed through Kael's eyes. Can't find you. He slowly raised his hand, and the sword of consciousness rose with it. Then I'll cut you open. Swish! The sword light traced an impossibly fine silver arc through his consciousness, crashing viciously into that invisible barrier. Clang. The instant they met, the sword tip flared with a searing shower of blinding spiritual light. The barrier did not budge. Sword of slaying. Kael's roar echoed. A smear of scarlet bled abruptly across the blade, and killing intent coiled with the raging tide of spiritual energy, slashing down once more.
Boom!
The entire consciousness space quaked violently under that strike. The barrier fractured into a web of cracks, each fissure weeping piercing white light. And Kael's physical body.
PFFD.
Every single pore across his body erupted simultaneously, spewing a fine, dense mist of blood. The droplets hung impossibly minute, suspended for a half, beat in the air before cloaking his entire form into a scarlet silhouette. A thick, cloying stench of rust saturated the air. Outside, He Zheng's eyes flew saucer, wide, mother of. The curse hadn't left his lips before the spiritual energy around Kael detonated skyward. The fourth acupoint, unblocked.
What?
He Zheng's composure shattered entirely, his whole body launched upright. This is absolutely im.
HM.
In the distance, Thuron's eyes snapped open. The depths of those pupils churned with suppressed, dark tides. The moment that gaze landed on He Zheng, killing intent pierced through him like a tangible shard of ice, freezing him rigid.
Uncle.
The collapse on He Zheng's face instantly switched to wild elation as his thumb shot up high. My brother Gu. A dragon among men, a phoenix above the masses. A peerless heaven-sent prodigy, what he will achieve in the future. It is beyond all measure. He laughed, his heart bled. He Zheng's last shred of pride shattered. When Kael opened his eyes, his body was drenched in blood, but those eyes gleamed like a sword blade fresh from the quenching fire.
Doom.
He clenched both fists lightly, and the spiritual energy they released punched the air with a deep, muffled detonation. Immense strength. He was certain now, if he faced Nero Yo again, there would be no need for the blood spirit art. The sword of slaying alone would carve that man down. You really went all out. He Zheng looked at him, his expression unreadably complex, utterly drained of any hint of temper. Still not enough. Kael shook his head, his face as serene as that of a man who had not just crawled back from the gates of hell. One more remains. Have you truly lost all regard for your own life? He Zheng's round face nearly scrunched into a knot. Since ancient times, I have never heard of anyone finding a fifth hidden acupoint. What you just used to break through was no ordinary method, believe me or not. He raised a hand and pointed at his own temple. If you try to force it here, forget breaking through. You won't even keep your life.
I will try.
Kael answered vaguely and closed his eyes once more. His consciousness slowly sank into the deepest depths. Within the space of consciousness, black mist churned. When Shade caught sight of that smile lingering on Kael's face, the mass of black energy around him noticeably faltered. Brat, his voice brimmed with wariness. What crooked scheme are you cooking up this time? This brat had never treated him with such courtesy before. The more courteous he acted, the more foul the scheme brewing underneath. Nothing much. Kael's voice sounded deliberately casual. I just wanted to ask you, how does one cultivate the ultimate boundary of the Meridia, an opening realm? Oh, that! Shade exhaled in obvious relief, his tone laced with self-satisfaction. Simple. Since we already have our pact, this sovereign naturally won't hold anything back from you. Listen well. Before that. Kael cut him off. The smile on his face faded bit by bit, like thin ice silently fracturing. He lifted his eyes, his gaze stabbing directly into the roiling black mist. I'd like to ask, you still have that golden sigil, don't you? The black mist contracted sharply. Shade's heart gave a heavy, violent lurch. From within the calm depths of Kael's eyes, he glimpsed the faintest thread of killing intent. Outside, He Zheng stared fixedly at the meditating Kael, cold sweat streaming down his back. He stole a furtive glance at Thuron in the distance. We're dead, absolutely dead. If this one dies, that one will definitely tear me apart alive. What? It's not my responsibility. When my Uncle Gu decides to kill, he doesn't give a damn about responsibility. At this moment, He Zheng fervently hoped for Kael's success more than ever. Inside the space of consciousness, the black mist churned with increasing violence. He didn't die. Shade's voice shot up sharply as he froze in place. A long while later, he finally released a breath. That sigh scraped past like a blunt blade dragged across dead wood hoarse and heavy. This sovereign never expected that Thuron would actually choose to walk this path. Before, I underestimated him. This man, he too possesses tremendous resolve. What do you mean a harsh cold light erupted in Kael's eyes? What exactly happened to my foster father? Shade's voice carried a trace of lament he might not even have been aware of, has already fallen into the demonic path. And what's more, he walks the path of the true demon. True demon? Indeed, when the demonic path is cultivated to its pinnacle, all routes ultimately lead to the same destination. Yet when broken down, heavenly demons, desire demons, true demons, yin demons, each is distinct. The true demon path that Thuron walks possesses enormous advantages. His cultivation advances by leaps and bounds in a single day, his battle strength is extraordinary, his killing power especially outstanding.
However,
Shade's tone shifted, but the backlash is also the fiercest of all demonic paths. Every step forward gnaws at his mind, his very self. If he loses control for even a moment, what remains will no longer be the man you knew. His voice pulsed, and the black mist around him twisted and churned, as if unseen hands were stirring it into a massive vortex. But this path has a fatal flaw. What flaw? Anyone who takes the true demon path gets dominated by the demon inside. Eventually, they lose themselves completely, and become monsters that only know slaughter and bloodlust. No exceptions. The one thing I can't wrap my head around is how that Thuron still holds onto a scrap of humanity. Because of me, Kael said. His voice was low but rock solid. Even fallen into the demonic path, foster father still remembers me. In that moment, he understood everything. The day Thuron chose the true demon path, it wasn't just hatred driving him. Deep down, he still wanted to protect Kael. And that thin thread of attachment kept him from plunging all the way into the abyss. Kael's knuckles cracked under the pressure as he clenched his fists, the joints blanching white. The pain in his eyes flashed like lightning, then hardened into a stubborn light. Thuron, Folly, the two most important people in his life. He'd exhaust every last shred of his strength to protect them. A dry, scornful laugh came from the mist, tinged with a bitterness Shade couldn't fully hide. A little over a decade together, and you've built bonds this deep. How laughable! His voice dropped, and the black mist shuddered as though thrashed by a gale. This sovereign spent 10,000 years training a disciple. And when he moved to kill me, he didn't even furrow his brow. Your disciple, Kael froze. It was the first time Shade had ever spoken of his own past. He betrayed you, not just him. Shade ground the words through his teeth, his voice carrying a near-imperceptible tremor. The surrounding black mist exploded outward, then contracted just as violently, churning with even greater ferocity. That wretch! How deeply did this sovereign dote on her? And she plotted with that treacherous disciple to murder me in the shadows. Kael's gaze shifted, an unspoken question there. His eyes fell on the violently churning black mist that was Shade, and he fell silent. Shade dispersed into dense fog, silent and soundless, like ink dripping into a deep pool. Inside Kael's consciousness space, invisible current surged. It was no wind, it was the aftershock of soul force grinding across the void. Threads of black mist spread, corroding, a suffocating pressure closing in from all directions, as if an unseen palm had seized every inch of his perception. The sword Bastille held silent. The sword intent lay dormant. The black mist continued its expansion. 1 breath, 2 breaths. More than half of the consciousness space had been swallowed by ink. Black, a heavy, deep hum permeated the void, like the muffled roar of a behemoth from the ocean's abyssal floor. Brat, Shade's voice spiked, ragged with urgency. Now. Kael snapped his head up. Above him, in the previously empty void, a pitch-black barrier was slowly materializing. So dense it felt less like a wall and more like a slab of solidified night, torn from the heavens and nailed into his mind. Heavy, suffused with despair. Merely gazing at it was enough to birth an insurmountable sense of suffocation. The barrier's thickness far exceeded the sum of the previous 4, its obsidian gleam carrying faint ripples of rebounding soul force. 3 breaths, Shade's voice neared a roar. If you can't break it open in 3 breaths, this sovereign can't hold on. Kael didn't respond, his right hand curled into a hollow grip. Sword Bastille resonated, trembling faintly. A crystalline sword cry tore through the suffocating silence. Countless razor-sharp threads of sword intent erupted from the prison, trailing icy contrails as they streaked from every direction to converge on his palm. The blade aura had yet to condense, but the cold already bloomed, a glacial plunge that crashed through the mindscape like midwinter water, flooding the skull. Sword intent solidified. A phantom longsword grew inch by inch from his grasp. Killing intent bled into the air. This was no mere cold. It was a chill that pierced straight into the deepest sanctum of the soul. The air around the blade began to warp in fine distortions. Killing intent thickened into substance, freezing the flowing soul force, freezing the spreading black mist, freezing even time itself in that suspended instant. Absolute stillness swallowed the mindscape. He Zheng's breathing vanished. The whisper of wind died. Only the sword of slaying remained, frozen in Kael's grip, poised but unreleased. Shade's remnant soul shuddered violently within the fog. Don't you dare harm this.
Strike?
Kael's voice fell like a shard of ice. The sword of slaying disappeared. No, it moved beyond the limits of perception, too fast for eye or spirit to trace. In the next instant, where the blade fell, space fractured like a shattered mirror. Countless ripples of concussive force screamed outward. Each shockwave carried fragmented killing intent, tearing across the void with a piercing shriek. Cracks bloomed. From the point of impact, a web of fissures erupted, spider, webbing across the entire dark barrier in a heartbeat. Before the barrier could fully fade, it collapsed with a thunderous roar. The fragments dissolved into motes of light, swallowed by the aftershock, and erased from existence. In that same moment, Shade let out a wretched howl. His form was blasted out of the black mist, hurled backward, and slammed hard into Sword Bastille. His once dense presence withered by a full third. Like a candle guttering in a storm, its frail flame nearly extinguished. The barrier shattered, the fifth acupoint opened. A colossal suction force surged from the ruptured void. The spirit force inside Kael's body flooded in as though a dam had burst. An invisible vortex spun at the breach, drawing his spirit force into a maddening whirl that resonated through his meridians in fine vibrations. A low hum rose from deep within his bones. His flesh answered, his soul force echoed. The acupoint's capacity was terrifyingly vast, devouring his spirit force until it neared saturation at nearly the sum of the first 4 acupoints combined. The urge to break through that had coiled around him finally, fully subsided. Kael steadied himself and slowly expelled a breath of turbid air. He opened his eyes. Theron's gaze was already fixed on him, deep, scorching, with a fierce crimson churning violently within, held barely in check. Foster father, Kael tugged at the corner of his lips. Rest easy, I'm unharmed. Good. Theron shut his eyes. His throat bobbed, swallowing something scalding. He turned, and with a sweep of his palm, the bloody essence from the Goldens, Galed Alligator's remains, was drawn out in strands and poured into his body as a crimson column of tea with every portion absorbed. The demonic flames engulfing him blazed higher. He Zheng gulped audibly and sidled back to Kael, voice hushed. Is it done? Done how? A casual stroke of the sword. Kael's tone was flat. He hadn't lied. Shade unleashed Magnus. The sword intent came from Sword Bastille. He'd merely lifted a hand. He Zheng's fleshy face twitched, his features souring with envy until they scrunched into a knot. Kael clapped him on the shoulder. You're not bad yourself, actually. Really, really. At least I've never seen skin this thick. He Zheng choked. Before the words could settle, a demonic aura detonated outward. Theron's robes billowed wildly. His presence climbed in savage surges. In his eyes, the last shreds of clarity and the towering demonic will clashed in a brutal war. Scarlet bled outward, only to be driven back by force. Concern surfaced, then was swallowed by violence. The two wills wrenched at each other inside his gaze, his bones grinding out a sickening creak. Foster father, your injuries, a joy surged in Kael's heart. No matter. Then come with me. No. Theron thrust out a hand to stop him, fingers spasming, knuckles whitening. The final spark of lucidity in his eyes nailed itself to Kael's face, as if to sear that visage into the depths of his demonized soul. After some time, I will find you. You go back first. Before the words fully left him, he threw his head back with a furious roar and launched skyward like black lightning. The air burst into a visible white ring, the sonic boom shrieking. The trailing demonic aura tore a scar across the dim sky and vanished in a blink. Foster father, Kael sighed. He understood. Theron had wrenched apart his own attachment, fled alone, also he would not harm him. Don't fret. He Zheng had perked up. With our foster father's strength, even demon beasts will detour around him. Have some shame, he's my foster father, same difference. You and I have faced life and death together, close as brothers. What's yours is mine, no. Kael couldn't be bothered with him. He strode forward. Halfway, he stopped dead. We're screwed, He Zheng wilted. The old man could have at least dropped us off before leaving, He Zheng. The imperial capital is to the north. Right. The northy, which way is that? The gloom pressed in like a weight. The forest caged them, shadows fractured, the sky shredded into dead gray slivers by layered branches. With their divine sense gone, they were blind. He Zheng's eyes darted. He jabbed a finger. This way, definitely this way. The young man beside him squinted. How do you know? See that tree? He Zheng brimmed with certainty. Pang, he snapped it clean through on the way in. The broken tree gaped, pale wood fibers, exposed like an old scar, ripped across the summer woods. Deep in the woods, Ivan tore through the trees like lightning, black robes snapping, each stride eating 10 zhang. A white shape cut him off, landed without a sound. Robes pure snow, not a speck of dust, hands clasped behind, face hidden, yet the unhurried grace of him hushed the forest wind. Senior brother Luo even skidded to a halt, bowing deep, every bone reverent. You came back, just to look around. Luo Washwang's voice flowed warm as a spring creek. Junior brother Yong, how'd the assessment go? All passed. That Chen Han from Great Kai real talent. Senior brother Luo, would you like to? No need. Luo Washwang waved a dismissive hand. Leave those small things to junior brother Yuan. I'm only here 2 days. Ivan's heart tightened, then eased halfway. Junior brother, Luo Washwang turned slow, a faint ambiguous smile curling. You seem a little afraid of me. Senior brother, what are you saying? Ivan's head dropped. It's nothing. Luo Washwang brushed it off, tone shifting. I heard you have a younger sister at the Grand Chu Martial Academy. Yes, how is her aptitude? Passable, not bad, Luo Washwang nodded. 10 days from now, the sect opens its gates again. Tell her to prepare. 10 days, Ivan froze. But isn't it still a year away? I think a year is too long. Luo Washwang smiled, light as smoke, and it chilled straight to the bone. So I changed it to 10 days. The sect master and the elders had no objections, even dared not press further. Forget it, Luo Washwang. Seeing his restraint seemed to lose interest, go back. I'll head to the Great Kai Imperial City and let them know, save them the worrying. Senior brother Luo even gathered his nerve. You're going to the Imperial capital to handle a small matter. Luo Washwang smiled again. Seems that while I was away, some have started ignoring the rules of Azure Cloud Pavilion. A gentle breeze stirred, and his figure scattered. Ivan finally let out a long breath. His robes clung ice, cold to his spine, soaked through. First Prince's Manor, a quiet chamber. Candle flames shivered on the bronze stand, their flicker throwing Duran's face into shifting shadow. His brows knotted, spirit frayed. 3 days, Nero Ya hadn't come back, Brand hadn't come back, Need Estiv Wuff hadn't come back, even Torin hadn't come back. He'd thought the plan airtight, yet those men seemed swallowed by the dark, not a trace, not an echo. Fine, he thrust himself upright. If I have to, I'll go myself. Uncle, master, a voice seeped through the doorway. Duran's heart jolted, his gaze snapping to the door. His whole face twisting, outside stood a young man in white, brows like distant peaks, eyes like bright stars, refined and smiling straight at him. Luo Washwang. He stepped over the threshold, the air sucked out of the room, the candle flames shuddered hard, shrinking by a third. An invisible weight pressed against Duran's chest, making every breath a fight. Wu, Washwang, you. How are you here? Uncle, master, you seem troubled. No, not at all. Duran scrambled. But Washwang, why come now? Came to see things. Luo Washwang sat without hurry, his gaze never leaving Duran's face. I've been gone too long, felt a little nostalgic, but I leave tomorrow. Uncle, master, sit. All right. Duran's heart beat a war drum. Washwang, you came to find me because... Nothing big. Luo Washwang waved a hand, easy and light. The place I'm headed is too dangerous, so I came to ask Uncle, Master for 2 life, preserving elixirs. I hope you won't be stingy. Never. Duran exhaled a huge relief. Washwang, name the elixir. Even if I don't have it, I'll refine it on the spot. No rush. Luo Washwang smiled again. Still gentle, but a cold line walked up Duran's spine. First, I'd like to ask Uncle, Master a question. Duran's heart seized. W.H.? What? That pavilion Master Qian, where is he now? Duran's blood turned to ice. I don't know. Uncle, Master, Luo Washwang sighed softly. When I joined the sect, you were already an old man, weren't you? Uncle, Master should know my character by now, shouldn't you? Each question drained the color from Duran's face until nothing was left. Luo Washwang slowly extended a hand, fingers spread, and looked at him quiet. Uncle, Master, take a guess. A sharp crack spat from the candle. A faint light flickered between his knuckles, the origin crystal's facets, throwing cold shards across his hand. The origin crystal in my hand. The silence pressed down like a mountain. Is there 1 or 2? Washwang, Duran shot upright, voice raw with despair. You can't do this. That matter had nothing to do with me. Luo Washwang didn't hear him. The candle shadows carved sharp lines across his face. Uncle, Master, take a guess.